I just want to welcome attorney Asha Wilkerson to the show. Asha, welcome.
Thanks, Broderick. Thanks for having me here.
I just wanted to have you on because I wanted to discuss your unique path as an attorney. You've had quite the incredible journey, and I think that people can learn from your journey. So let's get started. Where did you go to law school?
I went to UC Hastings. I almost said Santa Clara, but that's where you went to law school. That's where I went
Right.
to undergrad. But I went to UC Hastings in San Francisco for law school.
Why did you decide to go to Hastings?
Yeah, I decided to go to Hastings because while I was at Santa Clara, I participated in a summer pre-law program for undergraduate students from underrepresented groups to get them exposure to the law. And one of the schools that we visited was UC Hastings. And at Hastings at the time, they still have it, but it's been refined a little bit. There's a program called LEOP, the Legal Education Opportunity Program, which provides support to underrepresented students who come in through that program. And I knew that law school was going to be super challenging. And I thought, well, if I can get some support, I like the people that I met there, let me apply and see what happens. And if I get into Hastings, that's where I'm going to go. So that was the main reason why I chose Hastings. It's a good school, does decently in the rankings and stuff, but it was more about the support that I knew that I could get versus like a top tier school for me.
Did you have a second choice?
I had a few second choices. I did apply to Santa Clara. I thought maybe I wanted to go to Miami, University of Miami, because I have family down there. I applied to Berkeley. I don't know who doesn't apply to Berkeley, probably Stanford too. But I didn't really have my heart set on any one particular place. I thought, let me just apply and see what happens. And Hastings was the one that ended up shaking out. What I wish I would have known, though, this is advice I got afterwards, was to take a look at the financial aid packages that the schools would give you and go to the place that will give you the most money, or at least be able to consider that option. But I was too young, I feel like, to even think about that stuff, and ended up going to Hastings.
Did you get any money from Hastings?
I did not, no. And I didn't even know to ask or to apply for scholarships. I had a full ride at Santa Clara, so that was like a brand new world for me. And I remember my mom said, she was like, oh yeah, I remember when I paid off my student loans. This is after I graduated, and she's, trying to relate, right? Because I've got tons of student loan debt. And I said, really? How much were your student loans? She went to school back in like 1965, I think is when she started college. She was like, oh, I think about $7,000. I was like, what? So it has obviously increased exponentially, but I don't even think either one of my parents, because they had gone to school so long ago, could have really even helped me think through that process, because it just was so foreign to what they had experienced when they went to college.
Yeah, because one of the things that I always tell people is that if you get money from one school, you can take it to the school you really want to go to. And depending on where you are on their bell curve, they may find some money or match or give you more money to get you to go to their school. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's also sort of a mindset shift, right? Because sometimes we're made to feel that we're so lucky to be there, like, oh, you're so lucky Hastings admitted you, right? But you have to start thinking about yourself as the asset, that you bring something to the school and they'd be lucky to have you. So negotiate from that standpoint.
Right. Now, how was your law school experience?
That's a good question. How was it? It wasn't really, I guess overall, it wasn't really enjoyable, but I had some really good moments in law school. It's tough, right? Like, one of the biggest things is when you step in, you're used to being highly successful in undergrad, and you're used to longer study creates better results, right? And it's not like that in law school. And so the learning curve to get on the Socratic method, understand what they're asking you, and to be able to present it back to them is a challenge, because nobody tells you how to do that unless you're able to meet a couple people who are a year or two ahead of you and can explain it. But everyone's already in their own world, right? Doing their own thing. But I will say that there are friends that I have from law school that are still my best friends today. I studied abroad twice in law school. I met some really amazing people. So while the experience in total was really challenging, and I wouldn't say enjoyable as a whole, I have some really good had some really good experiences in that experience. And I also feel like at this point, there's nothing that I can't do. Like if you can make it through law school, you can do anything.
Right, right. What going into law school, did you know what area of law you wanted to practice?
I didn't totally. I wanted to be a teacher before I went to law school, and I was still really holding on to education. Then I started traveling, and so I guess actually pretty early on, I started thinking about international law and international human rights, and so that's actually what allowed me to study abroad. I studied abroad through Santa Clara the summer after my first year. I did a study abroad program in Costa Rica, and had an internship experience with the United Nations down there, their resettlement division. So working with refugees that were in Costa Rica and needed to move to another country. So I was working with them. And then the following fall, no, the fall of my 3L year, was it 3L year, 2L year, or three? I can't remember which one. 2L year, I think. I studied abroad in Leiden in the Netherlands, and I was fortunate enough to intern for a defense team working for the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. So it pretty quickly came to me that I really wanted to do something in human rights, working with folks who didn't have a voice, and I really wanted to live abroad and do good work.
So how did you end up with your first job? What was that process like?
Yeah. So let's see. My first job out of law school came from the summer internship. I don't remember what we call them in law school, but the job that I had from my 2L summer. So I worked at an insurance defense firm in Walnut Creek, California, and I did well enough, and that led to an offer so that I knew once I graduated where I was going to start working.
How did you, I assume that you guys had an OCI process at Hastings.
We did.
How did you decide to go do insurance defense work? Like, how did you like balance the practicality of insurance defense versus like what you wanted to do originally?
Right. Yeah. Really good question. So I was grateful for the opportunity, but I also explored, I feel like, a whole bunch of other opportunities in the beginning. I'd applied for jobs internationally, thought about maybe going to get an LLM in another country to help me make that jump abroad. I applied for some fellowships to take me back to work in Haiti. I also went to Haiti a few times through Hastings doing human rights work down there, and it didn't pan out. So I was really grateful to have this opportunity to work at the law firm in insurance defense, and I ended up taking it not because I didn't want to and had to. I liked the people that I had worked with. I ended up being placed on the medical malpractice team, and I think I knew that before my job actually started, and I was always interested in medicine. So it wasn't my dream of being able to work abroad, but based on the kind of work that was happening and the team that I was going to be working with, it was also a comfortable decision to take that opportunity.
And then how did you enjoy doing the insurance defense work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's a really good area to start out and get experience, especially if you go to a small or mid-sized firm. A lot of these big firms, they pay you really good money, but you're stuck doing doc review your first couple years, 2 or 3 years, and you can't get to any of the real hands-on learning, until you're 3 or 4 years in, right? So I really appreciated the learning opportunity that I had at the law firm. It was really fast. I mean, I was going to not take my own depositions right away, but to sit in on depositions. If it was a big case where there, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, 8 attorneys around the table, maybe I could ask a question or two, for the firm. And so it was a nice way to get into the practice of litigation. So insurance defense is a huge area, right? It covers everything from construction defect to medical malpractice to, auto accidents. And again, I think I was placed on a team for medical malpractice, and I really enjoyed learning about the medicine. I really enjoyed, as much as possible, reading the medical records and understanding what happened and when it happened and looking up the labs and seeing what that meant. So, there's a law part of it, but then there's the subject matter that you're actually working in. And I really enjoyed the medicine. So for me, it was fine. What got tiring after a while, of course, is the billable hours, right? You got to work
Right.
all these hours to be able to bill a client. But of course, you're at the office much longer than that because not everything you do is billable. So that was more of a dislike or dissatisfaction than the actual work itself.
How many hours did you have to bill? What was your billing requirement?
I think it was 1,800 my first year or 1,850, something like that. So what I don't remember the total number, but I remember that I had to bill 8 hours a day, if I was gonna be I shot for a little bit above the target, thinking that, well, if I took vacation, right, your billables don't stop if you take a week off.
Right.
I was trying to bill 8 hours a day.
So at some point you made a transition. What was your next transition?
Yeah, so the firm that I work for downsized and I was one of the last few people hired, so I got let go. And I ended up what did I do? I applied for a few jobs and then a couple friends of mine who had been out earlier than I, or a couple years ahead of me, said, "Hey, well, can you help me on this case? Can you help me on that case?" And a good friend of mine, Taiga, introduced me to a man named Aliu who had his own law firm. He had just moved into a new space and got a space with two office suites. And he met me and said, "Oh, well, I'll let you set up here rent free for 6 months and then we can work out something." I'm like, "What? Are you sure?" Right. And I ended up taking that opportunity. And so that was my jump start into starting my own law firm. But it was never ever a goal of mine to have my own practice. I was applying for jobs, didn't match with any of them that I really liked. And it was Taiga who was like, you're already running a law firm. You're already doing the work. Why not just, do it for real and stop applying? Just go 100% into it. And at that point I was like, huh, I guess I am doing that. Maybe I should, give it my all and see what happens.
Yeah, shout out to Taiga. She's a great resource.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.